Ladies and gentlemen, this is the first fireside chat we've ever done, and I'm really looking forward to this because you're going to get an opportunity to hear conversation from two state legislators in states that are very instrumental in passing pro-gun legislation. Rebecca Schmoe, Kansas state legislator, and Quang Nguyen from Arizona state legislator. Wait till you hear the story from this gentleman and from Rebecca. If you would welcome them both to the GRPC this year. Pleasure's all mine. Good to see you.
Thank you.
And Quang, pleasure's mine. So I'm going to forego the notes. Rebecca, you've been on my show before, and we had an opportunity to talk about some of the moves that you were making in Kansas. So let me start with you, because a lot of people around the country might not realize really how pro-gun Kansas is. And it is very pro-gun. First off, if you would start, tell us about the makeup of the Kansas state legislature and some of the recent pro-gun legislation that has passed in Kansas.
All right, Kansas State Legislature, I am in the House of Representatives. We have 125 of us over there. The Senate has 40. We do have a supermajority, but that's in name only. So we really do walk a fine line. Anything that the governor vetoes is likely to be touch and go when we come back to override. As you guys all know, gun rights and the issues surrounding those are volatile at best, even in safe states like Kansas. One of the things that I got to do as soon as I was elected, they call it a freshman term. So my first year, freshman term, I was able to go up and remove the state fee for our concealed carry license. Thank you. We do still have to pay the local sheriff's office $32 or so in order to do the processing, the paperwork, the picture, all of that. When we go back next session, we're actually looking at making sure to remove that fee as well. That way it will be no cost whatsoever to get your concealed carry permit in the state of Kansas. We also are constitutional carry. And we are true constitutional carry, as in you don't have to have a permit when you come to the state of Kansas. Anyone can come into the state, and if you are legal to carry at the federal level, then you are legal to carry in the state of Kansas, to the point where you are legal to carry in our capital in the state of Kansas. So it's pretty free.
Rebecca, does that include 18 to 21, or is it 21 up only?
18 to 21, you do need to have your concealed carry permit. You do need to go through the training. Over 21, you don't need to go through the course, but there are still a lot of really good, legitimate reasons to do that.
That would be state reciprocity, that would be background checks, et cetera, purchase firearms. What about wait periods in Kansas for firearms?
Oh, you just walk in and pick out
Free
what
state,
you want,
ladies and gentlemen.
and
I
then
said
you come
that
home.
to Californians, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people from California here, when we walk in Georgia, for example, or Kansas, we walk in, we buy a gun, we walk out. It's that simple. Quang, thank you. We'll go back to a lot to cover with you. Quang, you and I had a great conversation last night outside. I was shocked. The argument can be made, and has been made for many years, that Arizona is the quote-unquote most gun-friendly state in the nation. I would argue that, and maybe we'll talk about a little bit about that up here. And I'll just give you an example why, but we'll do that in just a second. First, you made some comments last night that utterly shocked me about how much legislation you personally have stopped in what I consider to be the very free state of Arizona. Would you tell us about that?
Thanks, Mark, for the question. Amazingly, we only have 30 senators in the Senate and 60 in the House, and we only have one vote lead in each chamber. So you know how dangerous that is in Arizona. Plus, we have a crazy Democrat governor, Governor Hobbs, and so you can see how difficult that is. Now, so in 2023, I was appointed as the chairman of Judiciary. And, I'm looking out there, I'm seeing so many scholars out there and litigators, and just so you know, officially, I'm not as smart as you guys, but what I can do as a chairman of Judiciary is to kill every single bad gun bill before they get to you guys. So,
how many was that you
in 2023, I personally shredded 24. In 2024, 34. And I can promise you right now, in January, I'm going to be facing about 30 of them. It's not very difficult if you have a shredder right next to your desk. So,
Would you be kind enough to talk? A lot of people might be shocked. I was shocked to hear that coming from Arizona. You're shaking your head, yes. Would you have expected that in a state?
Absolutely.
Let's talk about the opposition in Kansas real quick before we go back to Quang. What do you face from the Democrats? Just when you think they can't get any lower, they lower the bar further. Are you up against the same thing in the legislature?
Oh, we absolutely are. We also have a Democrat governor. She actually puts on the red shirt and invites the demanding mom nagtivist.
Demonic was right. You
Yeah,
could say
well,
that. Freudian slip.
That too. So she actually invites them to come to the Capitol and host them in our Capitol. So any gun legislation we try to put through that is pro, we're facing her veto. Aside from that, they will put forth things like safe storage and similar issues. The thing is that now that at the DC level, they have the How to Infringe Better on Your Rights department that Kamala is in charge of. They're actually training state legislators with your tax money in DC. They, 4 of our Democrat legislators, 3 from the House and 1 from the Senate, actually went to the first conference that they hosted, training on how to get little pieces added into good bills that would infringe on your rights. And so that was new for us going in, because all of a sudden we had all of these really interesting amendments that didn't say exactly what, like they weren't being totally honest about what the goal was. In fact, some of it was safe storage, some of it was removing campus carry, things like that. But they were wording it in such a way, because they had been trained, that it could have slipped through. Luckily, we have a lot of really good people in Kansas that are making sure that we catch all of those. But it's hard when they're being trained with our
And they're
tax
tricky
money.
about what they do. You're absolutely correct, because I'll insert this legislation that people don't understand. If it passes and it gets by, it will repeal what's already in place. So they're making those attempts in Kansas as well. In Arizona, Arizona is a very pro-gun state. There are some laws that need to be changed, hence why there's an Arizona Citizens Defense League. I'm a life member of the organization. I've been going to the meetings as often as I can possibly get out there. And a lot of people don't think, wow, what are they doing in Arizona? But you just enlightened us. A 1-seat majority. That's dangerous in a state like Arizona, particularly when you're looking at the demographic shift of sorry, Californians, but a lot of you Californications have turned Arizona very purple. But I sense that we're starting to see more conservative gun-owning Californians flee to Arizona. Could we be seeing the same shift that we saw in Florida that went from purple and blue to purple, now back to very solid red? Could that be happening in Arizona now because of that demographic shift? Is it changing?
I'm a refugee from California myself, right? So probably the only person who had escaped communism twice, right? Vietnam and now California. So
Congratulations.
So I would say this,
You.
It's kind of funny how people move from California to Arizona because they're trying to escape tax and all kinds of policy, but then when they get to Arizona, they vote the same way as they do. And so it's really perplexing for me but I thank God every day, because you think about it, you can't pass a simple, meaningful gun bill to protect the Second Amendment in the state of Arizona in the last 2 years. But so the best thing that you can do is to convince all of your colleagues that, hey, if we can't pass them, we ought to kill the other ones. And I'm able to convince people to do that. So I hope to come back as a majority. And I hope to be able to come back and maintain my chairmanship, because without it, we do have some people that are on our side a little squishy about it, and so we need to stand strong. And
let me interrupt. Why are they squishy? What makes them on our side squishy? What are they squishy about?
Occasionally, it's important to work with the other side to make us look like we're fair people. And when it comes to gun ownership, there's nothing fair about it on my terms. So either you You like guns, you don't. And I think the Second Amendment, I want to touch on this a little bit too. The Second Amendment is very personal to me because I know what it's like losing my freedom and my country. And so I don't want you to have to face that, your grandchildren, your children to have to face that. So I'm going to do everything I can to make sure I get to do my part. I don't want you to have to litigate these bills, these laws that they're going to pass when they take over the House and the Senate. I want to make sure they're gone before they get to you.
Yeah, the fear, that's what's always shocked me about a place like Arizona. You don't think that you're that close in Arizona. Maybe you would think about Kansas, a little bit more Midwestern state, but Kansas, you have a supermajority. He's not facing a supermajority right now, and in a place like Arizona, is very, very dangerous when that occurs. I'm going to touch on a couple laws, and I want to talk with you about some of your state laws as well. In Arizona, I would argue, and I come now from Georgia, prior to that from Florida, both very pro-gun states. When I moved from Florida to Georgia, Florida was light years ahead of Georgia's gun laws. And because of GeorgiaCarry.org, now GA2A.org, in a short 10-year period, we were able to flip that script. Georgia is light years ahead of Florida right now. Even with the passage of Florida's constitutional carry, it's still not an open carry state. You still can't carry in certain places. In the state of Georgia, not that I do this, but I can walk into a bar with an openly carried handgun and have a Jack Daniels on the rocks, and the only thing the bartender will ask me besides, do I want that a double, is what kind of pistol am I carrying? That's a true story. In the state of Arizona, I visit at least 4 times a year, much fond of the state. There's nowhere I can go in Scottsdale, for example, that doesn't have a no-gun sign on the wall. And in Arizona, that carries the full weight of law. Very few signs do I see in Georgia, and even if I do walk past it, which I do, if I see them, and it's very infrequent, it does not carry the weight of law. So how do you get that back? How do you advance that in Arizona, in a free state? Are you up against a dead end with Hobbs? She's not going to sign anything.
No, she's not going to sign anything, and to some unknown reason, under Republican Governor Doug Ducey, we weren't all that friendly either. So, but I do want to say this though: as a freshman, I did pass a bill that is the state version of the federal PLACA. So if you guys are manufacturers out there, please come to Arizona. You're not going to be sued. And as a freshman, I mean, I just stuck my head out there and did it. And, fortunately, Governor Ducey did sign it. But, regarding all these signs, I'm not sure I should be saying this as a lawmaker, but I tend not to see those signs.
I know what you mean. I've missed a few myself. By accident, of course.
Right. Movie theaters. Yeah. I don't know.
Zoos?
Yeah, zoos. Yeah, and things like that. But
Tombstone,
yeah,
Arizona.
but that's one of the reasons why I love concealed carry, and Arizona is a constitutional carry state. And just to let you know, the Democrats are introducing bills this coming January about taking away your constitutional carry. Limit your magazine capacity. Now, when it comes to magazine capacity, it's kind of a fun thing for me. Why is it 10? Why is it 20? Because I think magazine capacity for me, is 1,000 plus 1. And so I actually don't understand until somebody defines what high capacity means to me. It doesn't mean, I like Gatling guns sticking out of C-130, right? I've been on a C-130. So is that capacity? I don't know. And so, it's a one thing about the way I behave at the state of Arizona is this. As a chairman, when I introduce gun bills, Democrat members do not ever challenge me. And as, I was kind of wondering, is that me? Do I look funny or something? But it turned out that I actually asked the majority leader, and I said, why aren't they challenging me when I introduce gun bills? Quang, it's because you make them look stupid when they ask questions. So
weakness shows because of your strength, and that's huge. And the same thing applies to you. Let's stay on that tack. I find it's fascinating to me. As a state legislator, how does the other side approach you? We see this. Our friends on the other side. Are they really our friends?
It depends on the bill. It genuinely, it depends on the bill. There are friendlies that depending on what the bill is and what the bill's about and how likely it is to get passed, that we all work together really well, very, very nicely. And then there is anything having to do with liberty. And so we can work together on a few things. In fact, in Kansas, we just had a phenomenal, the House actually had a unanimous vote in favor of a tax cut. That has never happened in the history of Kansas. So everybody in every party was just, of course people need their money back. And then there's gun bills. Right. And I'm a little bit of a different case because prior to becoming a legislator, I was an advocate. And so I actually started with a couple of national organizations, mostly women's organizations for gun rights, 1 Million Moms Against Gun Control, and then Women for Gun Rights, formerly known as the DC Project. And so I was already doing the advocate thing. Most people that I now work shoulder to shoulder with and that come against me about gun laws already know me from my time testifying in their committees before I was ever a legislator. So they understand that I have the background. They understand that I know what I'm talking about. I know what the laws are. And honestly, most of the time, that garners some respect. And then on the House floor, not as much.
Well, there's also money on the other side, too. KSRA, I've spoken at their meetings before, a great group and a great group of people. But we have to fight, as everybody in this room knows, we have to fight with our $25 donations here, our $50 donations there, right? AZCDL, phenomenal group. And in fact, so good, I think between VCDL and AZCDL, those are the two groups that most other state gun rights groups have been patterned after at some point. And people have looked to those two groups for some type of authority. Now, you've already said they're scared of you. I can understand why, because you're successful at squashing their bills. Is there a chance down the road, would Hobbs, if it was a bipartisan bill, well, first off, let me ask you this. Is there any bipartisan pro-gun legislation that the Democrats would be willing to talk to you about in the state of Arizona, knowing its constituency base, that it is a pro-gun constituency?
None exists that I know of, all right? So it's very simple. The minute you, for example, they're screaming about, 104 children accidentally killed themselves, with guns that are not stored. And so my seatmate and I immediately introduced the bill. And we actually work with the NRA and the AZCDL on this bill as well. It says, we're going to introduce a firearm safety course. And that's part of the ASRPA, which I'm a president of. We teach firearm safety. We'll go in there, we'll volunteer, there's no cost to the state. We're going to get a bunch of ASRPA instructors and NRA instructors to go into the school. Teach your kids in high school once a year about gun safety. And what's the answer? First, we're going to veto it. And then we'll tell you that you are indoctrinating our children with the NRA information, right? Which is furthest from the truth. But speaking of indoctrination, they're at it for 60 years. And here we are, we're talking about firearm safety to bring into school to teach our children what? Run away, tell the adult, blah, 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 all this stuff. It's good stuff for children. Storage information, and she vetoed it twice already in 23 and 24. So when they come around and they tell you that they really care about children, they really are not. That's number one. Number two, nice thing about me being a chair of judiciary is I did ask the speaker for every single gun bill, good or bad. And then I asked for every abortion bill on top of that as well. So they're sitting there crying every day when I get onto my chair, every Wednesday, because their bills are not on the agenda.
Right. Good for you. You're shaking your hand over there. Kids, obviously, they play the card every single day. It's all about the kids. We're a bunch of extremists. We don't care about our kids. Everybody's in bed with the NRA. You see that there. Who are the most formidable gun groups, anti-gun groups that you're facing in Kansas?
Okay, so just the same as Arizona, we've been trying to pass a bill in the state of Kansas to standardize safety training for kids in public school for years. I mean, it's over 8 years that we've been trying to get this bill passed. The problem is that it's always referred to as the Eddie Eagle bill. And so the NRA is a 4-letter word. And therefore, it's easy to attack that. It is easy for them to just dismiss the fact that we're actually actively trying to help and keep kids safe and keep families safe because they can attack the NRA. They're the big boogeyman in the room at that point in time. So then it's still legal to teach firearm safety in the state of Kansas in a public school, but there is no standardization. So you can have a teacher in there that says whatever she wants. We can't have that. That is the indoctrination.
So let me stop you. What about guns in schools as far as armed teachers? I want to ask you about that as well in Arizona. But where are we in Kansas right now with that? Are there armed teachers in schools?
Technically, it is not against the law so long as you have your concealed carry permit and you have permission from the local authorities, including the school board and the superintendent.
Is it common? Do you know? Do you have any information on that?
Honestly, people don't advertise. And I'm a big believer in just take the stickers off the wall. Nobody's hiding behind those stickers. Those stickers are not keeping you safe when you walk past them. I worked in a public school setting for 5 years, and I had to walk past one of those stickers every day, and it never kept me safe once. And so if we just remove the stickers, then that in and of itself is a deterrent, and it doesn't cost the taxpayers any money at all.
Yeah, that's a great point. As you know, I'm very familiar with Arizona. I'm a big fan of Tombstone, been going out there for about 30 years.
Yes, sir.
Actually, every time I'm out there, I take a picture of the sign in front of the Tombstone High School and the elementary school. Warning, any deadly force will be met with deadly force. Our teachers may be armed. And that's a beautiful thing to put out there and remind people. So I know the answer to that in Arizona. Here's the reason I mention that. Most of you know, I come from Georgia now. And we just had a school shooting a couple weeks back in a county called Winder, in a city called Winder County. And I found out and was able to confirm through 2 legislators, to the best of my ability, that is one. Now, we have school carry. We also have campus carry in Georgia. But that was one of 4 counties. They couldn't tell me who the other counties were. They don't publicize it, that allowed armed teachers on campus. I can't tell you if there was an armed student there, but what I can tell you is 2 armed individuals stopped that carnage and probably saved at least another dozen lives before responding authorities could have gotten there. So we know it works. And it doesn't matter that it was a school resource officer, there was a guy, what was it, what do they say? A good guy with a gun doesn't stop a bad guy with a gun. That's BS, and we all know it. And what happened in Winder, Georgia was proof of that. So hopefully you guys move forward on that and we get some more. Look, I mean, even put the sign up, right? Just put the sign up. You might be reached.
Right.
You know it works. There's a Guardian program in Florida that's been in place since Parkland for the last 6 years. How many school shootings have there been in Florida since Parkland? 0.
Right.
Because bad guys know that every single school is armed. Where would you?
Right. So unfortunately, in the state of Arizona, it's up to the school district. So the school district will make the determination whether they want to have a school resources officer or
Safe
not.
to say Maricopa
Right.
does not have it in their school district.
Probably not. And I've been trying to run bills, and I said, you know, how much money do we waste on incarceration? There's a lot of money in incarceration, so let's just, and I'm okay incarcerating people. I love incarcerating people. As a matter of fact, as chairman
I
of
agree.
judiciary,
I think
when it
everybody
comes to
here does.
criminal justice reform, I want to reform a 5-year sentence to 10 years, and that's how I want to reform it. But go back to the guns. I introduced a bill in 22 that would allow CCW holders to carry on college campuses, right? And we had about 13 years of states that would allow college students to carry. I mean, obviously you have to be 21 to have a CCW. And out of those 13 years, we cannot find a single case where a CCW holder would shoot somebody on a college campus. And I remember when I introduced that bill, ASU came out and sent the police chief to the podium to argue with me. And what he said was, we have, and I'm coming as close as I can to the quote, we have a lot of mentally issue at ASU. We have drug users at ASU, and we also, he's coming from a police chief. Which marketing department sent him to the committee? and we have a lot of people using drugs. And I sat there flabbergasted, and I said, "Thank you for making your point, because I would never send my children to ASU because I don't want them to deal with drunk drivers, crazy people, and drug user." And basically, the next day, somebody said, "Who sent this police guy to go with Quang?" I don't know, but that's how crazy they are.
It's an uphill battle.
It is an uphill battle every day.
It's an uphill battle. It took us many years to move that in the state of Georgia. We finally got it signed. I know a lot of people don't like Governor Kemp, but he did some great things for gun rights. Later and longer, it took him longer than he should have. It was politically expedient for him to do it. I understand the politics of it. But we did become constitutional carry, and Arizona has been for. In fact, I was in Arizona when your governor signed that bill back in 2010.
And it was Matt Salmon that actually worked on that.
Beautiful work that you guys have done. So the future of Kansas, with the last 4.5 minutes we have, what do you see moving forward? What are your goals now to advance? And then I want to follow up to both of you. I'll ask you the same thing. What a Kamala Harris presidency would do, just to Kansas, to the country. So take both if you would.
Okay, so we actually last year introduced a state constitutional amendment that would clarify what arms means. So that would include components, accessories, and ammunition, because without those three things, your firearm is just a paperweight. On top of that, it also introduced strict scrutiny language into our state constitution, making it harder for the other side to come in and chip away at our rights. Aside from that, we have an entire list of things that we want to make sure to get done. We've got a Second Amendment Protection Act that we refer to as Hauser's Bill. He was a former representative. And basically what it would do is make sure that state resources could not assist federal alphabet soup agencies coming in to try to enforce their rules, which are not laws. We also would like to make sure that credit card companies are not discriminating. We want to eventually take the sales tax off of exercising your right, so no sales tax on firearms, ammunitions, things like that. We want to make sure that 18 to 20-year-olds can walk in and purchase a handgun. Since they're legal to carry them, we would like to make it to where someone else doesn't have to provide that, because that's a fine line.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because my son called me last night while we were having our deal. He was going to a Braves game. He'll be 20 tomorrow, 20 on Monday. He called me. He was taking a buddy to the Braves game. He said, "Mom's gun is in the car. Am I okay?" He was already 10 minutes from home. I said, "No, you're not. Unless he owns the vehicle. If the vehicle's not in his name," I had to send him back home. I said, "I don't want you to take a chance. If something happened, you're charged with a felony, even though he can shoot, even though he can go in and buy a rifle." That's the ridiculousness of it. Quang, what are you doing? We've got 2 minutes. Tell us.
Yeah, so real quickly, we're kind of in a situation where we need 90 votes plus the governor, and the governor is always against anything that has the word firearm or guns in it.
I've heard her say she supports the Second Amendment.
So basically what we're going to do is we're going to resort to just killing bills. A lot of my colleagues are saying, "Well, Quang, why can't you hear this bill? Because you're going to put it on her table, her desk, for her to be on the record that she's against the Second Amendment." Well, could you tell me which Democrat governor is supporting Second Amendment that I have to put her on the record? No, it doesn't work that way. Unfortunately, this is what happened when we put a gun bill on her desk. We put it on her desk, she vetoes it, and then she raises money off of it. That's the thing. She is so proud of vetoing these bills that she can go to her base and see, "Look what I did in the state of Arizona. I veto every single gun-friendly bill." And I don't want her to have the pleasure of doing that. So I'm going to continue to kill it for the next 2 years until I get a friendly governor, and then we'll talk legislation again. But we're going to continue to talk with AZCDL and the NRA and the NSSF to make sure that we work on meaningful things that can be passed.
And you know that the SAF has your back, that if something happens,
absolutely,
to help sue the crap out of it. I think we're going to run out of time, but I think you would both agree that Kamala Harris is not only going to be bad for the country, but bad for your states individually as well. You would agree with that?
I definitely would agree with that. But yeah, it'll motivate me to be at these organizations more often. But regarding SAF, Did I say that right?
Yes, you did.
Yeah. I don't want you to have to defend us because I want to get to the front end of it.
Boom. That's it. You're at spot on. You wanted to close out? We've got 40 seconds.
Absolutely. Kamala Harris would absolutely change the face of gun ownership in the nation, across
She's a gun
the
owner.
nation.
She's going to shoot an intruder, and she supports our gun rights. Now, she said that from the border
I
yesterday.
understand what she says. However, I also understand what she does, and I believe what she does far more than what she says. I tell people all the time, coming from the world of advocacy into legislation, look for the people who are protecting your rights. Support those who support your rights. If you cannot find a good representative, become that representative.
Boom. Ladies and gentlemen, first fireside chat. That was fun. The next one is going to be California Representative Darrell Issa, coming up around 1:15 to 1:30. So hope you enjoyed that. Thanks, guys. Quang Nguyen from Arizona, Rebecca Schmoe, Kansas. We'll get some help out here.